Agamemnon by Aeschylus. Our cast of characters include a watchman, under instructions from Clytemnestra. Clytemnestra, wife of King Agamemnon, left at home while he is away fighting at Troy. A herald, sent home with news in advance of the victorious Agamemnon. Agamemnon, king of Argos, son of Atreus, joint leader with Menelaus of the expedition against Troy. Cassandra, beautiful daughter of Priam, king of Troy, endowed by Apollo as a prophetess, brought back as a slave by Agamemnon. Aeschylus, lover of Clytemnestra, son of Thyestes, the brother of Atreus with a grudge against him. And the chorus, elders of the city of Argos. The place is before the royal palace at Argos, ancestral seat of Agamemnon and his brother Menelaus. It's not yet day. The watchman can be discerned on the roof of the palace.
I beg you, gods, release me from this drudgery. This year long spent as lookout, time I've crouched through like some watchdog, bedded up here on the palace roof of Atreus' sons. I've got to know the gathering of the stars, distinguishing those sparkling dynasties which bring the winter and the summer with their rise and fall. And now I'm watching for a token marked in flame, the gleam of fire that brings a word from Troy, the message, it is fallen. And in control of this, there waits a heart in hope, a woman's heart that organizes like a man. But as I pass the night upon my restless, dew-drenched bed, it is unvisited by dreams, this bed of mine, because it's fear, not sleep, that visits me and stops my eyes from closing fast. Whenever I would like to sing or hum, dispensing music as a healing antidote, instead I weep for how this house has met bad times, not managed for the best as once it was. Now, though, let's hope there'll be a bright release from all this pain, the flame in darkness that declares good news. The beacon! Welcome! Beaming through this night as bright as day. There will be carnivals of song and dance in Argos at this happy turn. I'm calling out clear to Agamemnon's wife. Stir out of bed, and quickly as you can, raise through the house a triumphant cry of joy in celebration of this flame. The town of Troy is overthrown. The beacon message tells us clear. I'm going myself to dance an overture to match my master's winning throw, because this beacon watch has thrown a 666. At least I hope to greet the ruler of this house and clasp his much-loved hand in this of mine. As for the rest, I'm keeping quiet. A hulking ox is standing on my tongue. The house itself, if it could find a voice, would speak out all too clear. I'm saying this to those who know my drift. For those who don't, it has slipped my mind.
10 long years now since the day that Menelaus, prosecuting Priam, strongly honor-bonded with his brother Agamemnon, double rulers, Zeus descended, launched their 1,000-ship armada from this country, battle claimants. War, they cry out, war, and shrieking sail like eagles high above their emptied eyrie, rage and anguish for their children, wheel in spirals, rowing with their feathered oar strokes, since they've wasted all that labor nest patrolling for their hatchlings. High above, some god does hear them, Pan, or Zeus, or Lord Apollo. Hears the piercing, keening bird cry, sends against the trespassers a late avenging Erinnys. In this spirit, Zeus, who guards the rights of host and guest, dispatches Atreus' sons against Prince Paris, all about a much-manned woman. He imposes grueling struggles, knees in dust and splintered lances pressed on both the Greeks and Trojans. That is where these things are poised now, heading for the end that's destined. No amount of sacrificing can placate relentless anger. As for us, back then, we had no strength to offer with our wasted muscles, so we stayed behind here, propped up on these wooden crutches. There's no camp for war within us, and the very old, with leafage dry, already withered, drift on triple-footed journeys, shadows, merely dreams by daylight. What's the news, Queen Clytemnestra? What's the message that has led you to proclaim these sacrifices? All the altars flame with offerings to the gods who help the city, those of the sky, earth, meeting places. Everywhere the flames are leaping, conjured by the purest resin, ointments from the royal storehouse. Tell as much as you are able and is proper. Do your best to cure this anxious fear that plagues us. Sometimes it recurs malignant, while at others soothing hope comes from your sacrifices, fending off the heart-devouring anguish. Since this God-given gift has stayed with me strong through my whole life, the power of persuasive song, I can command the art to evoke in words the omen that sent off our departing lords. So I shall tell of those birds of prey that faced the double chiefs of our Greek youth on their quest to take their vengeful spears to Troy's distant shore. Kings of birds to match our kings of the ore. One eagle's tail was black and the other white. They flew along the camp's spearhand to the right and made their perch where all could observe them clear, and tore their talons prey, body of a hare whose womb was crammed with its embryo young, stopped short while racing on its life's final run. Cry out with grief, I say, yet hope what's best will win the day. The prophet Calchas saw those who rent the hair, reflected Atreus' sons, the contrasting pair. He spoke this prophecy. Once proper times passed by, this invading force is bound to conquer Troy, the city sacked, and its human animals massacred in flocks within their own walls. My only fear is that some god will take offense and tarnish Troy's harness with dark in advance. For Artemis is stirred by compassion's pangs, resents her father's cruel terriers with wings who sacrifice the hare's stillborn leverets. It is this eagle's feast Artemis detests. Cry out with grief, I say, yet hope what's best will win the day. Artemis is so gentle, favoring newborn nurslings, fond of the suckling kittens of every ranging creature, so she demands atonement, balance for this defilement. Partly propitious, I see, partly malign, this portent. I am disturbed in case she should generate relentless counterwinds, ship detaining, stopping the Greeks from sailing. Don't, goddess, stir that other sacrifice with no music, no celebratory feasting, that architect, inbred worker of quarrels who fears no husband. For waiting behind is lurking a frightening, reawakening, devious house caretaker, long-memoried, child-avenging fury. This was what Calchas prophesied from the bird signs, mixed with good for the royal household as they departed. Sing this refrain in chorus. Cry out with grief, I say, yet hope what's best will win the day. Zeus, whoever he may be, but Zeus, if he's contented with that name, remains the title I shall use. There's no other key or claim, none to compare, if I should try to balance all the world by weight, except for Zeus. No, not if I still hope to cast my mind's disquiet away in all reality. Zeus. who set us humans on the road to finding wisdom on our own and fixed this precept for our good, the truth that learning comes through pain. Through hearing its persistent drip, the agony of pain recalled molds our thoughts in place of sleep and brings sound mine, although not willed. This favor from the gods' high throne is kind, but forcibly laid down. So was it for the elder king, commander of the great Greek fleet, not blaming seers for anything, but breathing as the winds inflate when all the host was stuck aground. Because the ships could not set sail, and all the soldiers were worn down, their stomachs filled with hunger's pain, pinned where the surging currents roar, encamped on Aulis' sandy shore. The winds, unrelenting from the northeast, sent them idleness and hunger, insecure at anchor, constant people chafing, rotting ship and cable, stretching out the days redoubled, scouring the Greek bloom to stubble. Then a grimmer course was offered to the leaders by the prophet, medicine for the bitter tempest. This solution, naming Artemis as plaintiff, made the sons of Atreus beat the earth with their scepters, and there was no keeping bitter tears from dropping. The elder king then poses his dilemma choices. Heavy chaos waiting for my not obeying. Heavy though the future chaos, if I butcher my own household's precious glory, stain my hands with daughter pouring lifeblood on the altar table. Which of these is clear from evil? How can I desert my navy? How betray my allies? For their keen desire cries for the wind to fade now, for a virgin's blood now. All that's right forbids this. May what's best conclude this. Once he had placed his neck beneath the harness of what had to be, he turned the breathings of his thought to godless rank impiety. From then he turned his mind to foster plans of sheer audacity. For clever, scheming madness, trouble starting, can make people bold. And so he steeled his hand to grasp his daughter's sacrificial blade, did all this to support a war of vengeance for a woman's bed. They count as nothing. All her father cries, her pleas, her virgin years, those battle-loving lords. The father tells his men to pray, and then to raise her high above the altar like a goat kid for the sacrifice, with all their will to hold her and her trailing robes in readiness, neck facing down. They tie a fetter around her lovely cheeks and face, a gag to hold her tongue from words, to put her house beneath a curse. They use the bridal's brutal force to muffle up her voice. And as her saffron-tinted cloth fell pouring to the earth, she shot each leader standing by an arrow from her eye, imploring pity, beauty. Standing out as in a work of art, she longed to call out their names, since there were many times she'd sung the maiden paean hymn within her father's hall, to chime with their third good luck toast and grace her father's feast. What happened next upon that day, I neither saw nor say. The things that Calchas' skill foretold did not go unfulfilled. The scales of justice mete out gain to those who've learnt from pain. But as for what the future bears, you'll hear as it occurs. Let be. It will emerge as bright as when the dawn brings light. Let's hope the rest at any rate will turn out fortunate, as we would wish us old and loyal this land's defensive wall. I am here in homage to your power, Queen Clytemnestra, since it is right to show respect towards the consort of a ruler when the throne has been left empty of the male. I would be glad to know from you if you are sacrificing in the knowledge of some firm good news, or in the hope of hearing something welcome, but I'll not object if you say silent.
May dawn deliver her good news that's born from kindly Mother Night. Here is intelligence more joyful far than can be hoped for. Yes, the Greeks have taken Priam's city.
What do you mean? I can't quite catch your words as real.
Troy's fallen to the Greeks. Do I make that clear?
I'm so overwhelmed with joy I can't restrain my tears.
Your eyes profess your loyal thoughts.
But what are you relying on? Have you clear proof?
Of course I have, unless a god has played a trick on me.
Is it the tempting vision of a dream that you put faith in?
I'd not accept the mirage of a drowsing mind.
Then has some fluttering rumor lifted you?
You are insulting my intelligence as though I were some girl.
How long ago, then, was the city taken?
I told you, in the kindly night that gave birth to this day.
Tell me what messenger could travel here so fast?
Hephaestus. It was he who sent the bright gleam blazing on its way from Troy's Mount Ida, and then beacon after beacon passed along a chain of couriers to here. The hills of Ida sent it to Hermione Craig on Lemnos. From that island, next to the towering promontory of Athos, took in hand the mighty torch, then flaring bright to leap across the sea's rough back, the flame light reached to Scopolis, where piles of resin pine passed on. The golden sun-like messenger to make its landfall on the lookout peak of Makistos. That stage was not delayed by carelessness or sleep, but flashed the beacon signal far across the straits of Aulis to the watchmen on Massapion. They kept the sequence going strong by lighting heaps of dried out brushwood, so the torch, undimmed, jumped right across the plain of Asopos to rouse the next link of the chain high on Kithaeron's fells. The watch there kindled even more and sent the beacon swooping over Gorgon Lake to Mount Geranion. The men there, waiting, keen to follow, sent the beard of flame across the headland overlooking the Saronic Strait. And then it swooped and safe arrived on Arachneon's height, our local lookout point. So finally, it leapt down on this rooftop of the sons of Atreus. This light, direct descended from the fire of Troy. This is the way I organized my relay race of beacons, carried to its end by handing on from one stage to the next. Such is the quality of proof I tell you of, transmitted from my man at Troy to me.
I shall pray later to the gods, my lady. But first, in my astonishment, I'd dearly like to hear again these things that you have spoken of.
The Greeks are occupying Troy this very day. And I imagine there's discord and shouting in the town. Put oil and vinegar together in a jar. They stay apart, irreconcilable, as you might say. Just so the sounds you hear from the conquerors and conquered, fates so different. One side falls down and clutches at the bodies of dead husbands, brothers, parents as they mourn their dearest dead from throats enslaved. Meanwhile, the others, after roaming through the night, all weary from the battle, turn to feeding, hungry for whatever they can find. Not orderly, but grasping at what chance may offer, they occupy the captured Trojan dwellings and relieved from camping in the open with the dew and frost. They sleep like happy men all through the kindly night. No need of guards, provided they show due reverence to the gods who hold that conquered land and to their shrines. The captors should not become the captured in their turn. I fear, though, that the lust to plunder what they should not may invade the troops as they give in to greed. Remember, they have yet to make their journey safely back around the homeward section of this course. But if the army can return without offense against the gods, the price paid by the dead might be appeased, provided no disastrous twist of fate intrudes. Well, that's the lesson that you hear from me, the woman. May what's best win out. And in a way, that's clear beyond dispute.
You've spoken, woman, shrewdly as a man, one of good sense. And now that I have heard persuasive evidence from you, I shall prepare to offer to the gods due thanks, since such high favor has been granted in return for all our pains. Mighty Zeus, along with starlit night in league, you threw your tightly clinging meshes over all the topmost towers of Troy to make it sure no adults, no young children could escape the vast enslaving trawl net, all entrapping ruin. And to Zeus, the host protector, who achieved this, I pay homage. Long has he been waiting with his bowstring drawn to shoot at Paris, aiming so his arrow does not fall short-waisted nor go flying off above the constellations. The hammer blow of Zeus, you might well call it. It can be traced to source if you explore it. Some people say the gods will take no notice when mortals trample things which are so precious they should not be touched. But that is impious. Disaster's sure for those with too much daring, and those whose puffed up pride is overbearing with houses full of goods to overflowing. Enough is good enough for wise discretion. A man with excess wealth has no protection, not once he's idly kicked the altar base of mighty justice into darkest space. His downfall is enforced by hard persuasion. No remedy can cure his infestation, which glows with ghastly light that can't be hidden. Like counterfeited bronze, with scuffs and hitting, he tarnishes to black. Once brought to justice indelibly, he smears his city's fortunes. None of the gods will hear his invocations, as justice crushes him for those distortions. One such corrupting man was Trojan Paris, who in the palace of the sons of Atreus breached hospitality and decent life by stealing and corrupting his host's wife. So Helen went and left behind military frenzy, recruiting of battalions, troops to man the navy. She brought to Troy catastrophe as her marriage dowry, tripped lightly in there through the gates, reckless in her daring. The seer back in the palace sighed, sensing the disaster. Alas, the house for what's to come. Alas, the house and master, the empty bed, her trail of lust, sitting silent, broken. He'll waste with pining, long for her, far across the ocean, and it will seem the house is ruled by a fading phantom. Her husband takes no pleasure in lovely shapes of statues, because without her living eyes, Aphrodite is absent. The visions that appear in his melancholy dreaming, though vivid, bring no true relief, only futile seeming. For if what seems a rare delight slips out from embraces, it never will rejoin the joys that winged sleep releases. Distress like this pervades the house, yet the grief spreads wider. For all of them who went from Greece ready for the fighting, conspicuous in each one's house, there is a woman sighing. This is a thing that touches all with heart-piercing passion, since each of those that they sent off was a living person. Contrast the shape that comes back home, entering their houses voiceless and cold. A hollow urn filled with crumbling ashes. Ares makes exchange for gold, holding up his weighing scales on the bloody battlefield, trading bodies for his sails. He refines men through his fires into gold dust by the ton, sent back home from Trojan pyres, bringing loved ones heavy pain. Ares trades men into jars, ashes for lament and praise. He, they say, knew battle skill. This one sacrificed his life. Bravely in the field he fell, died for someone else's wife. This they growl through gritted teeth, and suppressed resentment burns, aggravating spread of grief, finding fault with Atreus' sons. Far away from here, their men, bodies that were beautiful, win a burial in the earth under hard-won Trojan soil. With their low, resentful voice, citizens can raise a debt that in time works as a curse. There is a fear stays with me yet, something roofed beneath the night. Gods maintain a watchful eye on those who go beyond what's right and who kill excessively. And the dark Erinyes wear away relentlessly men who have unjust success, and they punish them below. Those who preen with too much praise catch the lightning bolt from Zeus. I would choose a happy life, free from envy's ranging eye. I'm not one to relish pain or to rage destructively. May I not lay cities low, putting people to the sword, nor ever know captivity subjected to an alien lord. Prompted by the beacons, news spread like wildfire through the city. Yet is it really true? Who knows? Or divine duplicity? Who's so childish, wonder-struck as to have their heart set blazing by some new fire message trick, just as liable to changes? This kind of guesswork will occur when control rests with a woman. She celebrates before it's clear. Gullible and rash, that's women. Their chattering is quick to spread, but once flared, is quick to fade. We shall soon know for sure about the lookout posts and message chains of flaming beacons, whether they were true, or whether, like some dream, this light of joy has made a fool of us. I see a herald running from the shore. An olive garland on his head, the cloud of flying dust is evidence this messenger will not be done without a voice, whose kindles signal fires and smoke from mountain timber. He shall either speak out loud a stronger call for celebration, or... But I recoil from uttering the opposite of that. I trust he will establish well what has apparently seemed well. And if there's anyone with other wishes for this land, I hope they reap the harvest of their own misguided thoughts.
Oh, soil of Argos, my ancestral country, after 10 long years, I have returned to you this day. At least I have achieved this, even though so many of my hopes lay shattered that I had despaired of ever dying here in Argos and of resting in our family tomb. So, greetings, land, and greetings, sun. Oh, and Zeus, our highest guardian. Oh, and you, Apollo, hold your arrows aimed at us implacably upon Scamander's banks, and now once more be healer and protector. I greet you, gods of gatherings, and you, my guardian, Hermes, my herald god of heralds, and these local hero gods who sent us off. I ask you all to welcome heartily those of our men who have survived the war. Oh, palace of our rulers, and you thrones and deities in front now, as before, receive our king, so long away with those bright eyes of yours, because he brings illumination through the dark to you and all in common here. Lord Agamemnon. Welcome him right royally, the man who has uprooted Troy by hackling with the blade of justice wielding Zeus. While their soil has been completely turned, the country's every seed eliminated. Such is the shackle he's imposed upon Troy. Oh, this man of happy fate, this elder son of Atreus, and he's coming home. Oh, of any man alive, he is the most worthy to be praised, because that Paris can no longer claim his exploits pay more than his sufferings. He has been found guilty of both rape and robbery, so now he's lost his takings, harvesting the total devastation of his dynasty. And the family of Priam has incurred a double penalty.
Herald, from the army of the Greeks, I wish you joy.
And joy I have. I would no longer grudge the gods my death.
Has longing for your fatherland so worn you down?
Oh, so deeply that my eyes flood now with tears of joy.
Stirred up by longing for the ones who needed you.
The country yearned for those who yearned for it, you mean?
So much that I would grieve with gloomy sorrow.
But what provoked this sullen state of mind?
I've always said that silence is the antidote to harm.
Some people made you fearful in the ruler's absence.
So much that, as you said, to die would be a blessing.
Well, things have been achieved, and we could say that some in this long stretch of years have turned out well, whilst others are more questionable. But who, except the gods, can stay entirely free from pain throughout the whole of time? Oh, I might describe the labors and discomforts on board ship, narrow gangways where we bedded down, the many deprivations every day provided for complaint. And then on land, conditions were more loathsome still. We had to camp out near the enemy walls where rainstorms pouring down and the dampness rising from the ground combined to keep us soaking wet. So all our clothing was infested by lice and leeches. And then the winters, cold enough to kill the birds with winds from off the mountain snows. And next day, the heat, the noondays when the sea lay fast asleep in waveless torpor. But why complain of all these things, huh? No, the past is past. The pain is past. Well, past so far. So for the dead, that they don't need to think of getting up again. For us, the ones left living, benefit wins out, and gains outweigh the losses. So good riddance to those sufferings. It's justified to boast this before this sunlight, that the fame of our achievement will spread flying over sea and land. And we shall offer dedications that proclaim the expeditions of the Greeks defeated Troy, and fix these trophies to adorn the walls of shrines throughout all Greece, a glory gleaming from the past. Now that you've heard this, it is surely right. You offer praises to the country and its generals. And thanks to Zeus, who brought all this to be. There, that's my story for you.
I'm gladly won round by your speech. Capacity to learn stays ever youthful in old men. But all these things, besides enriching me, should rightly most concern the house and Clytemnestra.
A while ago, I raised my joyful triumph cry, back when a fiery messenger first came at night to tell me of the capture and the sack of Troy. And there were some who carped. What? Put such confidence in beacon fires as to suppose that Troy has now been taken? Oh, just like a woman to allow her heart to be so easily elated. They made me sound a lunatic. All the same, I offered sacrifice, and following the female custom throughout all the city. First one woman here, and then one there. Struck up the triumph cry of joy, and then the temples made the altars smoke with incense. So now, there is no need for you to talk to me at greater length when I shall hear the tale in full told by the king himself. I must make efforts, though, to welcome my respected spouse as finely as I can when he arrives. What day is sweeter for a wife than this, to open the gates before her man when God has brought him safe back from his campaigns? To give this message to my husband to return as quickly as he can, the darling of the city. And should he find his wife at home, as faithful as the day he left her, guard dog of the house, so loyal to him and fierce against his enemies in keeping with this task, I have not broken any seal or lock in all this stretch of time. I have no more knowledge of enjoyment of a scandal with another man than I know how to dip and temper red hot metal. So there's my boast, brimful of truth. Appropriate calling from a noble woman.
So that is what she says to you. And clear enough, if taken with interpretation, a speech that may sound well and good. But tell me, Harold, what of Menelaus? Is he, the much loved ruler of this land, returning safe along with you?
There is no way that if I give a false account, it would sustain true friends for long.
I wish you would give me good news that is both good and true. If the two are split, there is no way to hide the rift.
He's disappeared. The truth is that the man himself and his ship too are missing from our fleet.
But did he set sail by himself from Troy? Or did a tempest tear him from the rest of you?
Like a skillful archer, you have hit the mark and put a great disaster into few words.
And do the other sailors reckon him alive or dead?
There's none that can give a sure report except the sun that nurtures all that grows on earth.
So tell us how the storm that struck the fleet began and ended.
It's not appropriate to sully a propitious day with telling of bad news. Now suppose a messenger, his face all sorrow, has to tell a city of atrocious sufferings for their defeated army, and to bring one common wound for all the people. It is inappropriate for one who's burdened with a task like that to chant a paean hymn for the Erinyes. But when a messenger comes with good news about successes to a city that's rejoicing, how on earth am I to mix up good and bad with telling of the storm that God's brought down against the Greeks? Two powers that have always been enemies conspired together, fire and sea, and sealed their pact by shattering the wretched navy of the Greeks. During the night, a hell of waves arose. Gates from the north collided, ships together driven by the lightning swirls and the pelting torrents into goring one another's flanks, until they all got scattered, as though chased by sheepdog orders from a vicious herdsman. And when the shining sun arose, we saw the plain of the Aegean waters blossoming with corpses of Greek men and debris from their ships. But as for us, our ship survived unscathed, thanks to the stealth or pleading of a god. It was no human took the helm, but our preserving fortune must have steered to rescue us from being swamped upon the ocean sea or driven on the rocks. And once we had avoided watery death, we turned our minds by light of day towards this new disaster that had smashed our fleet. And now if any of the others still remain alive, they must be thinking we are drowned, just as we think the same's befallen them. But may things turn out for the best. And Menelaus, you might think, if anyone will get safe back, if light shines somewhere on him still alive, thanks to the schemes of Zeus, who does not wish his line to die out just yet. In that case, there is still some hope that he'll return back home. But now that you've heard all this, you've heard the truth.
Who could have named her quite so fitly? Unless it was some unseen deity, one whose foreknowing tongue dictated precisely what was to be fated, matching the war-in-law bride, spelling her proper name for conflict, Helen, which predicts Hell for ships and sailors, and hell for soldiers, hell for cities. She sailed from her fine-spun bower with zephyrs from the west to blow her, pursued by many men with sword blades behind the ripples of her oar blades, until they reached the leafy babble of Simois, through blood-stained trouble. Wrath brought to Troy a fateful marriage that aptly sounds like damage. This God-sent wrath drove to the finish its sentence after time, to punish insults against the host-shared table that Zeus guards as hospitable, to punish the song-rousing raucous from her new family's wedding chorus. But Priam's ancient town is learning a newer kind of tune, and turning that song to soulful dirge inside them, renaming Paris Deadly Bridegroom. He brought a wave of devastation that spilt the whole blood of his nation. Once, there was a man who raised a lion cub, starved of mother's milk, hand-fed it like a babe, raised it in his house, and through its kitten time it was a playful pet, beloved by children, tame, favorite of the old, and often cradle-held, dandled in their arms like a human child. It nuzzled fondly, and with a shining eye looked up at their hands to be fed hungrily. But as time went by, it grew mature, and showed the inherited true nature of its blood as repayment to its rearers for their help. It showed gratitude by slaughtering their sheep, served the household with an uninvited meal, many cruelly killed, and blood splashed round the hall. This creature that was housed in its infancy was God-raised as a priest of catastrophe. To Troy's old citadel, there came in early days, one might well say, a sense of calm tranquility, a jewel of prosperity. Her glance shot out a gentle dart, rose of desire to pique the heart. She brought them, though, a bitter end by twisting round that marriage bond. She was for Priam's family a bad inmate, bad company, dispatched by host-protecting Zeus to make brides weep in Erinis. There is an age-old commonplace that when a man's wealth multiplies and crops with gain 1,000-fold, it does not die without a child, and from a growth so bountiful, bad trouble springs insatiable. But I, for one, do not agree. I say it is the evil deed that later grows in quantity and copies through heredity. The houses that keep justice straight will breed a line that's fortunate. And ancient arrogance is a way of breeding a new young arrogance in human evil dealing. When it comes, the day, one time or another, that appointed day gives birth to fresh anger. Godless insolence, too intense to master, makes the house collapse, engulfed in dark disaster. Justice radiates in houses smoke is tarnished. Justice elevates the man whose life is honest. Mansions decked in gold, where grasping hands are dirty, she condemns as soiled, and leaves with eyes averted. Wealth power she disdains as a mere illusion falsified by praise. She guides all to conclusion.
Agamemnon approaches on a carriage with attendants from the abroad. Cassandra, who has the robes and regalia of a prophet, sits behind him.
Welcome, mighty sovereign, sacker of the Trojan city, son of Atreus. What way should I greet you? How to pay due homage, yet not overshoot, nor send my arrow falling short of proper honor? There are many who have wrongly favored, seeming overbeing. Just as all are prompt to grieve with someone who has suffered, yet no anguish stabs their deepest feelings, so too, people make out that they take delight in someone else's happy fortune while they're forcing mirthless faces into smiling. There's no way, though, that a person's look can fool the expert flock judge if they merely seem to greet him with a friendly, fawning manner, which is really thin as water. Back then, at the time you led your army off to fight for Helen, I'll not hide it. In my eyes, you did not paint a pleasing picture. You were steering far from wisdom's channel when, in order to retrieve a wayward woman, you recruited men to face their death. However, I rejoice now with deep gladness for these labors well completed. As time passes, you'll discover which among the city's keepers have been honest, which aberrant.
First, it is right for me to greet this land of Argos and its guardian gods. They share with me the credit for this safe return and for the justice that I visited upon the land of Priam. For the gods decided on the case from listening not to speeches, but the death of the soldiers. And unanimously, they then cast their votes into the urn for blood, the blood of Troy and its destruction. Only hope approached the other urn, but left it empty. And now the conquered city still remains, conspicuous by its plume of smoke. The winds of ruination blow in lively gusts while dying embers spread about a greasy stench of wealth. For this the gods should be repaid with mindful thanks, because we have exacted punishment for a presumptuous act of theft. And in a woman's cause, the beast of Argos, offspring from the horse's womb, has ground the city into fragments. I mean the armored troop, which launched its leap at dead of night, a flesh-devouring lion that jumped the walls and lapped its fill of princely blood. It's for the gods that I've drawn out this prelude. Also, remembering your sentiments, I quite agree. You have me as corroboration. For it comes to few by nature to admire a friend in times of happy fortune with no taint of envy. I speak from my own knowledge, for I can read the mirror of true attitudes and see that those who seem so well disposed to me were really shadows, ghosts. And as for what remains concerning gods and city, we'll convene assemblies that are communal, consulting all the people so that we can consider how to make quite sure that what works well at present will remain effective in the longer term. And if there's any issue stands in need of remedy, we shall endeavor to avert malignant spread by the judicial use of surgery, the knife, or burning out. And now, I'm going to go into my palace, home, and hearth, where first I shall do honor to the gods who sent me out and now have brought me back. I pray for victory as she has followed me to stay on steadfast at my side.
Gentlemen, you elder citizens of Argos, I am not ashamed to tell you of my husband's loving ways. It's from my own direct experience that I shall speak about the burdens of my life throughout the time this man was kept at Troy. It is a dreadful anguish for a woman, sitting by herself at home without her male, forever listening to malignant rumors. They would arrive, man after man, announcing news of ever worse catastrophes. And then as for wounds, if this man here had suffered blows as many times as reported to this house, he'd be more perforated than a net. And if he had died as often as the stories told, he'd have to have been triple-bodied like some second Geryon. Thanks to grim rumors of this sort, I've had to be unbound by others from the noose I'd fixed above and around my neck. And that is why our child, the token of our pledges, yours and mine, is not here by my side, as should have been the case, Orestes. Don't be concerned at this, because a family friend is looking after him, King Strophius of Phocis. He wisely warned me of two grave uncertainties: the danger you were threatened by at Troy, and secondly, suppose that popular unrest attempted to contrive a hostile plot. There's a tendency to kick a man who's down, so caution of this kind brings no deception with it. And as for me, the well springs of my tears are all dried up with not a droplet left. My eyes are bleared from lying late awake and weeping for my beacons, standing there inactive. When I did have dreams, they were so shallow I'd be woken by the whine of a mosquito in my ear. And now that I've endured all this, I can, with heart released from grief, address this man of mine as guard dog of the fold, the forestay that secures the ship, the firm fixed pillar that supports the roof on high, dry land to storm-tossed sailors who'd lost hope, a flowing fountain to the thirsting traveler. I hold him worthy of descriptions such as these, but let this not attract resentment, since we've borne so many troubles in the past. And now, my dearest heart, step from this carriage, but do not, great king, set down upon the soil this foot which flattened Troy. Come, women, get on with your task of spreading fabrics along the pathway he will walk. Yes, let us have a passage strewn with purple, so that justice may escort him well inside a home beyond his hopes.
The women spread out the purple cloths between the wagon and the door.
Our close attention, ever wakeful, shall ensure that all the rest is, with the gods' help, rightly done.
Offspring of Leda, guardian of my house, your speech was fitting to my absence, stretching out at length. But proper eulogy remains a prize, it's right for others to award. So do not pamper me in female fashion, nor like some barbarian bound down to me with gawping salutations, and stop this spreading of my path with woven stuff which might attract resentment. It's the gods who should be honored in this style. For mortals to take steps upon such ornaments of beauty is, in my belief, a thing that's fraught with fear. So pay me homage like a man, I say, not like a god. There is a very different ring between the sound of foot nets and fancy fabrics. Keeping clear of dangerous thoughts remains the greatest gift from God. One should not call a life well blessed until it has been lived right through in full prosperity. If I can act entirely in this frame of mind, then I may rest secure.
Well, tell me this in open honesty.
For sure, I'll not betray my honest judgment.
Might some alarming turn have made you vow these to the gods?
If someone with authority had authorized this deed.
And Priam, if he had success like yours, what do you think?
I'm sure he would have stepped upon the precious cloths.
Then pay no heed to people's criticizing talk.
Yet grumbling from the populace can be a powerful force.
The unresented man, the ones with nothing to be envied.
It is not a woman's place to show such relish for a fight.
Yet those who reap success may properly concede defeat.
Does victory in this contest mean so much to you?
Agree. You're still in charge if you give way to me by choice.
All right. If this is what you want, here, someone lace my boots. And as I tread upon these fabrics dyed with purple, may no envious eye light on me from afar. I have deep qualms about destroying household properties by crushing underfoot these precious cloths that must have cost much silver coin. So much for that. And now, this stranger, offer her a kindly welcome. God looks favorably from afar upon the man who wields his power with gentleness. No one puts on the yoke of slavery on purpose. She's had to come along with me, the army's gift, the bloom selected out of many captured spoils. Well, now I've been subjected to your wish like this. I'll make my way inside my house with trampling on purple.
Agamemnon steps onto the cloths and makes his way towards the door.
The sea there is, and who could drain it dry? The sea produces many, many dye shells, an inexhaustible supply of welling purple, worth much silver, rich for steeping fabrics. Thank the gods we have a wealth of these, my lord. This house does not know poverty. I would have vowed to trample on innumerable woven cloths if that had been prescribed by the prophets to ensure deliverance of this man's life. As long as there's the root, the leafage can grow back around the house and spread its shade against the fierce dog days. And now that you've returned to your domestic hearth, your coming signals warmth in winter. And in summer, when the grapes are sour, then there is coolness through the palace as the complete master ranges through his home. Zeus, Zeus, God complete. Now see my prayers to the end. Make sure those things that you ensure become complete.
Why does this clinging dread overcast me with foreboding, fluttering about my heart as I try to read the omen? Why this prophetic chant with no payment, no commission? Why can't my reason spit it out dreamlike and dismiss it? Time has gone aging on since the sand jumped off the cables, hauled from an ocean bed when it sailed for Troy, that navy. They have returned home. My own eyes have been the witness, yet all the same my heart, uninstructed, sings within me dirge notes without the lyre, dirge an Erinnys composes, dismissive of the strength that hope offers to oppose it. My heart is churning, whirled with the dread of due completion. I hope my fears prove wrong. May it never reach completion. My insatiable desire can fill a house too full. Corruption lives next door and leans against the wall. A life that's laden rich will strike on a dark reef unless some dread can reach it first to keep it safe by throwing off the side a share of all those goods. The house may then survive, not sunk by its crammed holes. Once blood is spurted black and soaked the ground with death, there's none can chant it back to life from the stained earth. An overriding fate holds back those who transgress, a warning that my heart should make clear with full voice. It lurks in dark instead, murmurs in its pain, and can't unwind the thread. Meanwhile, my mind's aflame.
You come along inside as well. It's you, I mean. Cassandra, Zeus, far from showing anger, has set you where you may share the rituals of the house and take your place with the other slaves around the altar of our household, Zeus. So, step down off this carriage and don't act aloof. They say that even Heracles was sold to be a slave and had to feed on barley gruel. So since compulsion has tipped down the balance of your fortune, count it as a blessing. You belong to masters with ancestral wealth. Those who unexpectedly strike rich prove cruel owners, while from us, you shall receive what is the proper custom.
It's you she's been speaking to, and speaking clearly. Now that you've been captured in a fatal net, you should obey, if you are going to.
Unless she speaks some unintelligible foreign tongue and chirps like a swallow, I should be reaching through into her understanding.
Go on. She's telling you what course is best for you. Obey and leave your seat in the wagon.
I don't have time to waste out here. The animals are ready for the sacrifice before the central altar of the palace. If you wish to join in this, then don't delay. Or if you can make nothing of my words, then wave your hands instead with alien gestures to communicate.
It seems the stranger needs a good interpreter. She's behaving like some new caught creature.
She's crazy and delusional. She has arrived here from a conquered city, yet she has no notion how to wear the bridle. Not that it is before she has been broken in. Her mouth blood-flecked with foam. I'll not waste further words on her, just to be disrespected in this way.
Well, I feel pity for you, so I'll not get angry. Come, poor woman, get down from this wagon, yield before necessity, and take on this new yoke.
Apollo.
Why these strange sounds about Apollo? He is not the god for someone who laments.
Apollo.
There she goes again, profanely calling on the god who's not appropriate for joining cries of grief.
Apollo, appalling, you destroyed me. Now for a second time, you easily destroy me.
It seems she is to prophesy her own misfortune. Although a slave, the gift remains strong in her mind.
Apollo, appalling, you destroyed me. What kind of home is this? Where's this that you have drawn me?
This is the palace of the sons of Atreus, if you did not know. I'm telling you the truth.
No, a house God-hating. It's a house that's freighted with much inbred bloodshed, where its own are butchered. A human abattoir, a blood-bespattered floor.
The stranger seems keen-scented like a hound. She's on the track of murders, that's for sure.
This is what confirms me, what I see before me. These little ones bewailing their own cruel killing and the roasted meat their father had to eat.
We've heard about your reputation as a prophet, but we do not need your visions.
Aye, so hard! What is this? This scheming? What trauma is this now? Utter wrong, this scheming here within this house. Unbearable, incurable, far from all defense.
I cannot understand this prophecy. I recognize that other one. It is well known.
Aye, so harsh! So this is what you're hatching. The man who shares your bed, your husband as you bathe him. How to tell the end? Immediate, inexorable, hands reaches over hand.
I still don't see. I am at a loss to understand these prophecies. These riddles are obscuring.
Ah, such pain, such pain! What's this that comes in sight? It is some Hades net, and she who draws it tight is she who shares the bed, who shares the guilt of blood. So let the gloating crew, bloodthirsty for this race, strike up the triumph cry to mark this sacrifice.
What sort of Irenaeus is this you tell the crow above the house? Your words don't cheer me, no. The sallow drops of blood drain out from my pale cheeks to flood my heart, just as a wounded man life fades together with his sunset rays.
Aye, it's plain! Keep him from the cow, the bull. She wraps the robes around him, then see how she springs the trap and stabs him with her jet black horn. Down in the watery pool he falls. I tell of death by tricks enough to fill a deadly murder bath.
I am no expert judge of prophecy, but all these things you say sound bad to me. No human good that I can tell has ever come from prophet's skill. Their craft and many sayings lean to fearful things for us to learn.
Oh, oh, so cruel a fate. I mean my own ordeal. It's for my death I cry, poured in to fill the bowl. Why have you dragged me here to misery? For nothing but to share death's agony.
Mad-minded, God-possessed, frenetic to set this music that's no music to your own fall. You're like the nightingale for pity with her lament of, it is, perpetual.
The nightingale with her clear ringing songs. The gods have fashioned her with feather-covered wings. She has a pleasant time, no cause to wail. For me, there waits the edge of sharpened steel.
These sorrows, God-possessed, on-rushing, these elegies you mold with passion, where are they from? These darkling, piercing notes of mourning, waymarks of your prophetic journey, where are they from?
Oh, the marriage joined with death by Paris. Oh, Scamander's waters, stream of my ancestors. Back then I grew from girlhood by your flowing whirlpools. Now, though, it seems I shall prophesy upon the banks where Archeon sweeps by.
Why are your words like this, all too precise? Even a child could hear and find it clear. I feel the piercing bite of your cruel fate. You shake me to the core with notes of fear.
Oh, the suffering of my city's crushing. Oh, the ritual slaughter offered by my father. Those sheep flocks from our meadow proved no cure from death, though. No way to stop the city falling as it had to. And I shall spill to earth my hot blood too.
The horrors that you tell continue still. Some cruel divinity drums heavily and turns your melody into threnody. I cannot understand how this will end.
No longer shall my prophecies peer out from veils all coyly like a bride upon her wedding day. But springing freshly like the breezes from the rising dawn, they'll stir a swell that breaks yet greater grief upon the shore. No longer shall I offer hints from riddling clues. Bear witness, I'm a bloodhound, sniffing keenly on the scent of horrors perpetrated long ago, because there's a chorus never leaves this house. It sings in unison, but not in harmony. Its theme's not benign. It is a drunken band fired up by the swigging of human blood. And yet they skulk inside, refusing to be sent away. Where are they? Family Uranus. They occupy the rooms and chant their anthem of the primal wrong, denouncing him, the one who trampled on his brother's marriage bed. Well, does my arrow miss or does it hit the mark? Am I a cheating prophet just blurbing fortune teller hawking door to door?
I'm amazed at you. Although brought up across the seas, you have the power to tell what happened in an alien place as though you had been standing by.
It was Apollo raised me to this role as prophetess.
He was enraptured with desire, you mean, a god.
Before now, I was too ashamed to speak of this. He twinned his limbs about mine, breathing sweetness.
And did the two of you join in the act that makes a child?
I promised I would, but then refused.
Were you imbued already with God-given powers?
I was already prophesizing all Troy's sufferings.
How could Apollo's anger let you stay unharmed?
I offended him. No one believes a word I say.
To us, your prophecies appear convincing.
Ah! Again, the piercing anguish of foretelling true comes swirling up and thrums me with discordant preludes. Look, see these children, like forms in dreams that sit around the house. Their hands are full of meat, a home-cooked feast. It's their own offal that they're holding, clear, such pitiable portions. innards that their father gorged upon. And in revenge for this, I say there is one, the jackal lolling in the lion's bed, the stay-at-home who's plotting how to catch the master when he comes. The leader of the fleet and conqueror of Troy has no idea of how the hateful bitch can use her tongue, how she can fawn and lick and brightly dip her ears, then bite. So daring is the female killer of the male. What could I call this loathsome creature? Viper with envenomed fangs at either end, or snapping Scylla lurking in the rocks, a threat for sailors, a gaping, hellish mother set on war with her own family. How brazenly she whooped her cry of triumph, as though it was a battle turning point, while seeming joyful at his safe return. It makes no difference if I fail convincing you, because the future will be coming all the same. And soon you shall be standing there and pitying me and calling me the one whose prophecies infallibly turn out to be true.
I recognize Theatrics and his feast of children's meat. It makes me shudder when I hear it so directly put in words. But as for all the rest I've heard from you, I'm trying to interpret, but I've lost track.
With your own eyes, I say you shall see Agamemnon dead.
Hush your mouth, poor woman. Don't say such things.
There is no way of curing this prediction.
Not if it is to be, but may it never come about.
You utter prayers. Meanwhile, they're readied for the kill.
Who is the man who's planning this atrocity?
That shows how far you've lost track of what I've prophesied.
But I can't see how he'll devise a way of doing this.
Though my grasp of grief is good, too good.
Oh, the Delphic oracle is Greek, yet hard to understand.
The fire, how it engulfs me. Apollo, me. This is the lioness that walks upon 2 feet, who makes love with the jackal while the noble lion is away. And she is going to kill me. Like mixing up a potion, she has added her reward for me, stirred in the brew. And as she whets her sword to kill the man, she gloats that he will recompense in blood for bringing me along with him. What reason have I, then, to keep this token stuff, a joke against myself, this staff and ribbons round my neck? To hell with you! I pay you back like this. And see, Apollo for himself strips off this prophet's rigmarole. He does this after gazing at me being ridiculed in this array by even dear ones turned against me. I have had to suffer insults and be called a starving pauper girl, as though I were some begging fortune teller. And now the prophet god has done with me, his prophetess, and brought me to this kind of death-bound end. In the place of my ancestral altar, there awaits a butcher's block, still warm with blood from the previous slaughter there. And yet, our deaths shall not go unmarked by the gods, because another one shall come as our avenger. A mother-killing, father-vindicating child, a wandering fugitive excluded from this land. He shall return and add to the topmost row of stones to cap these kin catastrophes. His father, stretched out there, shall draw him back. In that case, why lament so piteously? I have seen Troy first suffering as it did. And next the conquerors are being dealt their turn before the judgment of the gods. I therefore take my place as well. I shall be bold to die. The door I greet now is the gate of Hades, and I pray I shall receive a swift, clean blow, so that, without convulsion, with my blood outgushing easily in death, I close these eyes.
You are a woman deep in misery, yet also deep in insight. But if you truly know about your death, how can you tread so resolutely, like a god-directed heifer to the altar stone?
There's no escaping, strangers, none. There's no more time.
But time is precious at the very end.
This is the day, today. To run would gain me nothing.
Well, your resolve is surely rooted in a heart of courage.
No happy person ever has had to hear such words.
It is some blessing, though, to perish gloriously.
Oh, Father, how I feel for you and your noble sons.
What's the matter? Why recoil in fear? Why retch like that? Is this revulsion in your mind?
The whole house reeks of murder, dripping blood.
No, that is just the smell of ritual sacrifice.
It's like the fetid stench exuding from a tomb.
It can't be the exotic incense that you mean.
No longer shall I flutter like a frightened bird. Now I shall go inside and sing laments for Agamemnon and myself. Enough of life. Strangers, I ask you this. Bear witness after I am dead that I was right. Once that it's happened, that a woman has met death to make amends for me, a woman, and a man has been laid low to match a badly mated man. As a stranger on the point of death, I ask this favor from you.
Poor woman. I feel pity for the fate you have foretold.
I wish to add just one more word, a swan song for myself. I call on this my final shining sun. Make sure my killers pay back dear with their own blood for me, the victim slave, the easy catch. This is the way it is for humans. If they have good fortune, it is like a shadow. If they are unfortunate, it takes a dampened sponge to wipe the picture clean away. And I feel far more pity for these things than those.
It is only human nature never to know satisfaction with success. And no one tries to stop it moving into mansions which set envious fingers pointing. No one orders, no admission. This is true of this man, even. One of the gods have favored with the prize of taking Priam city and of coming home in honor. All the same, if now he has to pay for murder done by former generations and to die for his own killings, and by dying bring about yet further killings, if all this, then who could claim that any human may be born to happy fortune safe from troubles?
Ah! I have been struck. Deep. Fatal.
Keep quiet. Who is shouting about deadly wounds?
Again. I'm struck again. Ah!
It is the king. His cries sound like the deed is done. We should decide together on the safest course. I tell you my advice. It is to summon citizens to come here to the palace bringing help. I think that we should break inside at once. Investigate it while the sword still drips with blood. I share in that opinion. My vote's for action. This is not the moment for delay. It's clear to see this is the overture to setting up a new tyrannical regime. Yes, and we're wasting time while they despise our caution and are pressing on with action. I'm unsure what a response to recommend. Someone who means to act must plan ahead. I go along with that. It's not as though we can stand up the dead again for all our fighting talk. So, are we going to give in to these violators of the royal house just to save our skins? Intolerable! It is better to be dead, less bitter than to live on under tyranny. So do we speculate the man is murdered merely on the evidence of hearing shouts? We ought to be discussing what we know for sure. Mere guesswork's not like certain knowledge. I feel we are agreed. We must find out for sure how Agamemnon fares.
The doors open to reveal Clytemnestra with sword in hand, standing over the bodies of Agamemnon and Cassandra lying, caught up in a net in a bathtub.
I offer no apology for saying things that contradict what I have said before to suit the moment. How else, if you are planning harm against your enemies who think they're friends, how else are you to rig the trap of nets too high to be escaped by leaping over them? My mind has long been working out this final contest in my long-drawn feud. And now at last it has arrived. I stand here where I struck with what is done in front of me. I managed it, and I am proud of this, in such a way that he could not escape his fate nor fend it off. I cast around him an impenetrable mesh, like one for netting fish, a fatal luxury of fabric. Then I struck him twice, and with 2 cries, his limbs went limp. Once he was down, I followed with a 3rd, an offering made in gratitude to Hades, the safekeeper of the dead below. And so he gasped his life away and spouted out a jet of blood that showered me with a drizzle of dark dew. And I was glad, as glad as is the crop of corn to feel the gleaming moisture gift of Zeus when grain is brought to birth from out of the husk. It is proper offering to pour upon this corpse. This blood, it's just even more than that. Because this man has filled a cup of such accursed crimes within this house. And now he has returned and drained it to the dregs. So that is how things are, you Argive elders. Be glad if you are gladdened. As for me, I revel in this.
I am astounded by your brazen tongue. You're bragging like this over your own husband.
You patronize me like some little woman with no mind call her own. I speak with heart devoid of fear to those with no wit to understand, and you can praise me or condemn me as you like. It's all the same to me. This man, Agamemnon, yes, my spouse, and yes, a corpse. This work on this right hand of mine, this architect of justice, and that is that.
Woman, what detested earth-grown venom have you tasted? Or drunk down what poison dredged up from the deeps of ocean have you done this murder? With the people's curses shouted, you shall be deprived of country, banished with the city's hatred.
Today, you sentence me to exile from my country and to hatred from the people and their curses. Yet back then you raised no voice against this man. This man rated her as nothing. Back on that day when he cut his own child's throat as though it was slaughter of an animal, one from his many fleecy flocks of sheep, the treasure of my labor pains, used as a charm to quell the gusts from Thrace. So isn't he the one you should have driven from this country in atonement for pollution? Yet when you scrutinize my handiwork, oh, then you are the righteous judge. I tell you this, in answer to such threats, I'm ready to submit if I am overcome in contest, hand to hand. But if the God ordains the opposite, then you may learn in your old age to think more carefully.
You are proud and devious, and the words you speak ambitious, just as you are maddened in your mind, which murders reddened, and the blood flecks flaring show up on your eye whites clearly. You shall pay dear, friendless, trading blow for blow, relentless.
Hear this, my solemn oath by justice now completed for my child, by curse and Uranus, the powers I've sacrificed this man to satisfy. No pang of fear stalks through my house. No, not so long as one maintains the flame upon my hearth. Aegisthus, not while he stays loyal to me. The shield who keeps me confident. Here this one lies, the violator of this woman here, the charmer of the golden girls at Troy. And here she is, the prisoner, the prophetess, this double bed mate, fortune teller, believable between the sheets, who used to shuttle back and forth across the benches on the board ship. And so they have both met their due deserts. He's here like this, while she, swan-like, has sung her final funeral dirge. And with her lying here on top of him, she has served up for me an extra sauce to top my luscious feast.
I wish it would come quick. Not after lying sick, nor after pain-filled years, that final fate that draws the never-ending dark of sleep that does not wake. Now that our noblest guard is lying here, struck dead. He suffered many ways, all in a woman's cause, and through a woman's deed his life has been destroyed. Frenzied Helen! You alone have destroyed in front of Troy lives, so many, all too many. Now you've bound a final crown, stained with blood too strong to scour. You, the war cause in this house.
Do not let these things so crust you that you may wish for death to take you. And don't turn your anger onto Helen, calling her the fatal man destroyer. It's not right to claim that she, one woman, ended all those Greek lives and inflicted all this pain that stays so piercing.
Daimon of the house, you swoop down on this place, and in the differing pair, the sons of Atreus here, and you have lavished power upon the female pair, so similar at heart. It bites me deep, this hurt. Above the body now, like some detested crow, it struts, and gloating sings its tuneless triumph songs.
Now you've hit the truer version. When you name the family Diamond, fattened for 3 generations. That's what nourishes the lust for lapping blood pools. Then, before the ancient trauma can be mended, it more suppuration gathers.
Yes. It's fraught with fury, that strong diamond, never sated fully with misfortune. Everything that happens comes through Zeus, all causing, all enacting. What's concluded for us humans without Zeus behind it? How am I to weep for you, oh my king, my king? What heartfelt words of loyal lament can I turn to song? You lie where you breathed your last, in this spider's web, prisoner of slavish bonds on this squalid bed. Hobbled by this deadly trick, you met with your end, chopped down by a 2-edged blade, gripped in your wife's hand.
Are you claiming that this slaughter is my doing? Stop regarding me as Agamemnon's spouse, then. No, the ancient, acrid, vengeance spirit has assumed the shape of this cadaver's wife, aroused by Atreus' heartless banquet server. It has claimed this full-grown victim, further payment for the children.
To claim that you are guiltless of the slaughter, no one could stand as witness for that falsehood. How? How? But that some specter might have joined you, avenging ghost ancestral, as accomplice? That is possible. And Ares, gore-stained and dark, will make more bloodstream channels come flooding back to where he can claim justice for the babies whose flesh and clotted blood was served at table. How am I to weep for you? Oh, my king, my king! What heartfelt words of loyal lament can I turn to song? You lie where you breathed your last in this spider's web. Prisoner of slavish bonds on this squalid bed, hobbled by this deadly trick, you met your end. Chopped down by a two-edged blade gripped in your wife's hand.
In my judgment, this man's death was no more squalid than was fitting. It is right that he has perished through deception, since he ruined this whole family with deception. Yes, the darling that I bore him dearly wept Iphigenia. He, her father, made his victim. Now he suffered suitably to match his actions. He will have no cause to bluster down in Hades. Now he's paid by fatal sword stroke.
I remain at a loss, helpless, without resource which way to turn my mind before the falling house. I fear the drumming storm beating upon the home, the deluge turned to blood, a pelting hurricane. Now fate whets action edge, keen on the sharpening stone, preparing to ensure that there is more justice done. Oh, earth! Oh, earth! I wish you'd covered me before I'd set my eyes on this man brought to such a lowly bed. This bath with silver sides. Who comes to bury him? Who to lament? Could you now have the gall, when you have killed your husband, to stand there and lead the funeral wail? To favor his past life disfavoredly in tribute for his deeds? Who shall proclaim the graveside eulogy with heart that truly bleeds?
It is not your proper place to raise this matter. By my hand he dropped down in death, and by my hand he shall be laid down under, not with mourning from outsiders. Aptly shall his daughter greet him, his adored Iphigenia meet her father at the ferry landing by the aching river and embrace him, planting kisses.
Damnation meets with condemnation back. To judge is difficult. The plunderer gets plundered in his turn. The killer pays for guilt. Yet this remains, as long as Zeus remains upon his throne secure. Who does the deed must suffer for the deed. That's the eternal law. Who can eliminate the seed, expel the household curse at last? This family and dire catastrophe are glued together fast.
Yes, you've hit upon the truth with that pronouncement. So, I'm willing to agree a solemn promise with this diamond, this bloodline. And if only it will go and leave this family and oppress some other house with kindred murders, I shall be content to manage with a fraction of our riches, just enough, nothing further. This I promise, if I can then purge this household from the madness of killing one another.
I greet you, welcome light of day that brings me justice. I can say at last that gods look down from high upon the crimes of the earth and make sure humans pay the price. In essence, now I see this man here lying in the woven cloths of the Erinyes and paying for the plot his father perpetrated. That father, Atreus, was the ruler of this land when he was challenged for the kingship by Theatrics, my own father, and his brother. Atreus drove him out, an exile from his house and land. Unfortunate then, Theatrics then returned, a suppliant at the hearth, which was a way to save his blood from staining his ancestral soil. but as an act of hospitality, with enthusiasm more than love towards my father, godless Atreus made out to be arranging a great celebration feast. And there he served him up a dish of children meat. He hacked away their heads and hands and feet and served Thyestes as he sat apart with portions that could not be recognized. So in his ignorance, he ate a dish which, as you see, has proved disastrous for the dynasty. And then, once he realized his monstrous act, he cried out in revulsion and, recoiling, spewed the gobbets out. He kicked the feasting table over, and so made it fit the justice of his curse. Like this, I pray the whole bloodline be overturned. In consequence of that, you see this man brought low. And I have pieced this death together with the thread of justice, for I was the third child, left alive and driven into exile as a little baby with my wretched father. Well, justice has returned me here. Now that I am full grown and I have got this man into my grip, although I was outside the house itself by linking the whole scheme behind this deadly plot. So even death would seem acceptable for me now that I've seen him tangled in the cords of justice.
Aeschylus, I have no respect for one who acts all high and mighty in bad circumstances. You claim you meant to kill this man and planned this pitiable murder. Well, I proclaim that once you are brought to justice, you shall not escape the people's stones and curses flung at you.
You dare to talk like this, although you're down upon the lowest rowing bench, while those in charge are on the bridge. Now, you'll find, when brought to see some sense, that learning can be tough for people of your age. Prison and starvation pangs remain outstanding teachers, even for the aged mind. You have your sight, and you don't see that? Don't kick against the goad for fear you get jabbed sharp back.
You stayed at home, effeminate, and schemed against the soldier fresh back from the field. All the while you sullied his own marriage bed and planned his death. Our general.
Suffer long and hard for saying that. Your talk sounds just the opposite of Orpheus. His voice was so delightful he would draw all nature to him, while you, thanks to your howling foolishness, will find yourselves dragged off in chains. Once you're subdued, you'll prove a bit more tame.
You think that you'll be sovereign over Argos? You, who, when you'd planned his killing, didn't even dare to strike the blow?
Because the trickery was obviously the woman's role. My long-time enmity made me the object of suspicion. Yet I shall undertake to rule the people here by making use of this man's treasury. And anybody who's not obedient, I'll clamp beneath a heavy yoke. He'll prove no frisky grain-fed colt. Starvation rations and a dark prison and a pitch-dark cell will see him get more docile.
But why not strike this warrior down yourself, you coward? Why do it through a woman, bringing down pollution on the country and its gods? I only hope Orestes is alive somewhere, so he may yet return here with good fortune to become the champion killer of the pair of you.
Since you've decided to act with bluster, you'll soon have to learn your lesson.
Come on now, my fellow fighters. Close time to action.
Come on now, my soldiers, hand on sword hilts ready.
And my hand is ready also, and I am quite prepared to die here.
Yes, you're saying die is welcome. We accept that offer.
No, my dearest. Let's not do more damage. We've already reaped enough unhappy harvest. Let's not have further bloodshed. Go back to your houses, you respected elders, before you suffer. Yield to how things are determined. We have done the things we had to do. If this proves the end of troubles, we would welcome that. Since we've been lacerated by the diamond's talon, well, that is my woman's contribution, in case anybody thinks it's worthy of attention.
But to have these people letting loose their tongues against me, trying out their luck and hurling their defiance, should they be allowed to scorn their ruler without thinking?
Argives could not stoop to bow before a worthless creature.
Oh, I shall still be looking out to get my hands on you in the future.
Not if some divinity directs Orestes back to Argos.
I am well aware that those in exile feed themselves on hoping.
All right. Feed fat yourself and mess with justice while you have the chance to.
You shall pay back dearly for this mad defiance.
Keep on crowing like a cock parading by his hen bird.
Take no notice of their futile yapping. You and I shall take control together and set straight the powers of this palace.
Clytemnestra ushers Aeschylus and his guards into the palace. The old men of the chorus disperse in silence. Blackout. End of play. Thank you so much, everyone. I would like to introduce our cast, featuring Sherry Vanden Heuvel as Clytemnestra, Francesca Mintoff-Chij as the chorus, Justin Glover as the herald and Aeschylus, Isa Jakowicz as the watchman and Cassandra, and John O'Hagan as Agamemnon. That is our show. If you enjoyed tonight's reading, please do consider showing your support for virtual programming with a tax-deductible donation.